Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And, Bill, we are getting a lesson right now as a nation in what it is to be loyal and to have your identity tied to a group. Kind of like a lot of us have our identity wrapped up in a sports team.
That's right.
And I keep dropping my jaw at things that we're seeing happening in this country. But if you think about it in terms of the loyalty that people have to a sports team, you can start to understand it a little better, can't you?
Yeah, this one's this is a difficult day because whether it's in business or politics, whether it's in a family dynamic, whether it's in any upset that can take place in a business or an upset or a product recall, the company doesn't want to talk about a product recall because it's going to affect trust with their brand. I don't want to talk about this. I want to make this as small as possible. I am going to do, and stay in the place of reducing that upset because I need my customers to remain loyal and to continue to purchase my product. So now, Tom, you're a Red Sox fan, I think, right?
I am a lifelong Red Sox fan, yes.
Yeah, and I believe you just went to an Angels game wearing your Red Sox cap. Is that right? Did you do
Absolutely, yes. And in June, I think, or maybe it was early July when the Red Sox came to Anaheim. I'm there, my whole family's there. We're decked out in our Red Sox gear. By the way, so was half the stadium, but
So notice how I hope the listeners are noticing how loyalty and identity jumped in. Well done, Tom. I mean, that's the dig. That's the thing like that. Now, I don't think anybody, hit you over the head with a Angels flag or, yelled at you in a way to like, go home. You've betrayed us. What's wrong with you for being in the stadium? This is our stadium. This is our stadium. This is our house. You don't belong here. Nobody yelled at you like that, did they, Tom?
No, they didn't. I mean, there's certainly I would say, I don't know if friendly is that the word, but there's the typical razzing of the other side, Red Sox suck, Angels suck, whatever. Or we have different cheers that everybody in the crowd are like, let's go Red Sox, and then of course, then the Angels have the same cheer for them. There's all that sort of stuff going on. But no, as I'm walking shoulder to shoulder into the stadium, out of the stadium, waiting in line to get, a beer or something, there is no serious animosity or attacking, really, that I've ever experienced. And I've been doing this for 15 years at Angel Stadium, Yeah. So
no one sprayed you with bear spray or pepper spray, and no one hit you with a stick
no.
Okay, good. And it's really a strange narrative that you and I are starting down because the narrative that has to do with identity or loyalty or even self-worth can be rooted through whatever label or identity or sports team that we can, fight for, and we scream at the top of our lungs, when our guy makes the shot or when our gal, scores the goal. We are in a place of loyalty towards the people of our team.
Yes. And I'll tell you, Bill, as I think about how much I was raised as a boy to be a Red Sox fan, because, heck, I was born in the city of Boston, literally, and raised in New England. And yeah, I moved to California, quite some time ago, and I'm not going back. But there's a lot of my identity that is lined up with the Red Sox, and there are years when they're horrible. And my father-in-law, who's a Yankee fan, lets me have it, but I don't know that there's anything. I guess there probably is a line somewhere, but I read it would take a lot to move me off of being a Red Sox fan.
Correct. And there might be a lot for you to be disgusted with your father-in-law because he's a Yankee fan.
Correct.
In other words, it doesn't really serve you or him because, you're married to, his daughter. So it doesn't serve you to have a vile opinion of him because he's a Yankee fan, right?
Correct.
Oh, huh. Well, imagine those identities then are done from a sports perspective in reference to Democrats and Republicans. Now, all of a sudden, things just changed very quickly on this podcast. Well, the identity of something also fits into the identity of America as having two different opinions about the way things work, or the better way things work, and who is going to win the message. But here's the weird part about this. The Red Sox are not storming the Major League Baseball offices and trying to take down the
commissioner of baseball.
Of baseball. No, and the vice president of the commissioner in case he's not there, or the voting, the board members, or the players union, or the things. They're not storming against that. They've got to figure out how to meet the good of the entire whole versus their own upset about what takes place, what took place. So the New Orleans Saints can be as mad as they want about during a playoff when there is I'm still working my own pain about this.
Oh, about
a pass interference playment about them not going to the Super Bowl because that's over. The Rams are over at that. And I'm sitting in the Rams side of the fence, but yet I have a Drew Brees, fandom that goes on, and I'm upset about that. But I'm not storming the NFL or the, Canton, Ohio. I'm not going after that and storming there and trying to break in and say, wait a minute, they don't deserve. The Rams didn't deserve to have the playoffs. Therefore, blah 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 blah. You see. It's really, this is a very, very important discussion about identity, loyalty, self-worth, community, connection. When we as a nation are not working in community building anymore, we're not building community at the local level. We're not doing news at the local level. We're not supporting that. We're just supporting the bigger news places, which is really problematic, because when you do that, when it becomes very top heavy, it becomes really a challenge to deal with one type of identity, labeling, judging, criticizing, and diagnosing another point of view at the expense of truth.
Well,
really hard.
It is really hard. And I'll tell you, it has been very difficult this week for this issue. And that's why I appreciate having the discussion about the sports teams, because it helps us understand a little bit why some people are behaving the way they're behaving. But when we see these 4 witnesses at the House Select Committee on January 6th giving testimony, sworn testimony of their experience, they were there, they were in it, they were injured, defending the Capitol, protecting all of the members of the House and the Senate, all of Congress. And they give this really, I guess I don't know how to quite frame it, moving testimony. I mean, because it was perspective we haven't heard directly from people who were there in quite this way before. We've seen video clips of all sorts of videos that were shot, but we hear this testimony and it's like, wow, this is seriously riveting stuff. What is it? 2 Capitol police officers and 2 DC Metro police officers, I think it was.
And they're representing the other 140 that were injured, and the other 600 of people, the 600 of them that were in there, really just holding the ground to protect the lives of both the Congress and the senators inside the building. They were protecting the leadership.
And they were protecting the very function of our government in America, the United States of America, to affect the peaceful transition of power of a duly elected, leader.
That's correct. And what it's they're functioning in, when we get to the loyalty of a sports team, the rule could be broken and somebody doesn't necessarily die over it. Like if the Red Sox lose a bunch of games this season, it's not at that level of you in your loyalty to them. You're not going to feel good about the team, and you're going to shake your head, and you're going to want leadership, the coaches, and you want them to play better. You want the front office to hire better people. You want to, and there can be that mistake, or that one mistake that loses them a critical game. And even though they've made all of these wonderful things, there was this one mistake. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to fire that guy. We're going to, get rid of the person that made the mistake. Meanwhile, they are one of the best players. They go on to the other team and they help them win a pennant. But it's one of the things that we've got to work with as human beings, is that, are we standing for the right identity when we get entrenched in a team mindset versus a collective good mindset? What's the collective good for what the nation is? Instead of going like, no, my team is so important, I am not interested in things like truth, integrity, fairness. I'm not interested in that. I'm just interested in the vote, and I'm interested in the win, because if I get my people in, I get what I believe is going to be better for the nation, not necessarily what's better for the nation. I believe it's going to be better. And that is really unsettling. Is it going to be better to do this one, this thing? Is it going to be better? So here we are. You and I are talking about truth and loyalty to the sports team mindset in both business and politics. It's unsettling, but after watching a TV show that I don't like, I may consider not buying their product ever again and making sure that if my children are interested in buying that product because they've advertised on this show, I'm going to dissuade them because they're more loyal to me than the company that is paying for an opinion that's not mine. Do you see how tricky this is? But notice how much override I have to do. I have to build a case. Here's where my identity has drawn the line.
And, that's the thing that happens all the time. People make their own decisions as to where they're going to draw the line. And if they're supportive of what a television show or a television network is saying, and when there are sponsors on that show, they're like, am I going to help that company and buy their product so they can continue to support this show? I mean, that people make some decisions, right? And
right.
And this can really affect business. Well, it's very interesting to see what's happened this week in this regard, Bill, because on the one hand, in business, we see Fox News, the company, putting on pause. And if you're not watching the video, I sort of put some air quotes around that. They're pausing their business relationship with the MyPillow company, and their ads are not running on Fox News anymore. And these ads have been, I understand, although I'm not a regular Fox News watcher, they've been a staple on Fox News for some time. And his company has gotten a lot of sales because of advertising on Fox News. But the business Fox News has sort of drawn a line and said, this guy who's saying President Trump's going to be reinstated on August 13th, that's a bridge too far for us. And we don't want to be viewed as being in alignment with that. So we're not going to accept your advertising dollars. We're not going to run your commercials. We're going to pause for a while.
We're going to pause for a while. We can't be in a relationship with you because of that. Now, notice they're picking the greater loyalty to the bigger advertisers than he is. And yeah, we can keep taking money from the big, the MyPillow guy, but it's at the expense of the longer term play because he's starting to sound and he's becoming a leadership for a voice that is outside our narrative we do not want to be associated with. Tom, have you ever noticed that some Red Sox fans are crazier than you are?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so that's a little bit of this thing. It's like, yeah, I see you, crazy guy, yelling or screaming or doing but could you back that off a little bit? Because, now you're affecting my identity and the hat that I'm wearing because you're wearing that hat that I'm wearing. And this is a little bit what's happening in both politics and businesses is that you got to be careful what hat you're putting on. And also now you're actually responsible for all the behaviors of the people wearing that hat. The Make America Great Again hat being worn in certain public places in certain cities is not really the strongest choice because now you're wearing your identity for something that has a great deal of Now, at the same time, there's 73 million people that voted for that hat. And there's, 80 something million that voted for the other hat. Wearing a Joe Biden Harris hat in a city that voted against that has a bit of volatility to it, because we are going to storm the Major League Baseball offices. We're going to storm the thing because our way is one that we get to yell at you for your way. And meanwhile, the America hat is nowhere to be found. The America piece, there's nothing to be built, or people don't even, it's a little weird to say, but if you try to wear the America hat over to other nations, you'll now start getting pushback.
You'll get a different kind of pushback, because actually people in other countries have very different opinions about Americans than most Americans realize. And, if they actually if more Americans traveled outside the country, which I know is hard to do these days right now, but
right.
I've traveled around the world quite a bit in business, not since the pandemic started, but certainly for decades before that. And you get a different perspective on America when you see how we're viewed by people in other countries. That's actually a bigger subject maybe for another day, but you do get some perspective.
Correct. Because they and their team has a different hat. The identity, the loyalty, the self-worth, the qualities of who I am because I am with this other group. And you can judge and criticize whether it's North Korea or whatever country it is, thinking like, oh my gosh, they live there. What team do they have? That's the only team they have, and that's the only leader they have. There is not a healthy discourse in that particular country, because a healthy discourse goes, I'm sorry, you're not on the team. you're going in jail, because we don't want a two-party identity here. We don't want open discussion. We don't want that. We want to have this other style of leadership.
Wow. Well, Bill, now, so we gave an example of the loyalty, sort of the sports team loyalty in business with, Fox making this decision about the MyPillow company. But let's talk about this sort of loyalty in politics. And we already mentioned before, we had 4 witnesses testify in the House Select Committee regarding January 6th. After that testimony, you and I both saw what the Fox News opinion hosts did to meet their need for loyalty, I think.
That's right.
To their team being the Republican Party. Isn't that right?
Yes, and the brand loyalty is, no, we're fighters. We're going to fight for this, and we are going to take a look at what took place, and we're going to minimize that person's experience. So the feeling of shock, the feeling of outrage is a button. Is a series of needs buttons that you get to push as a communicator. So we don't respect these people because they're Democrats. We don't respect things. But you and I both know, if we're sitting at a Red Sox Angels game, I can still respect the best player on the Angels team, even though I'm voting. I'm rooting for them. I'm just hoping that player doesn't do good in this game, and it doesn't affect my team. But I still appreciate that person's talent, and I may cheer against that person's talent to see if I can get him to rattle, and maybe he won't play as well. And that's the fun or the entertainment of owning what my identity is and stepping into that. But imagine that at a larger level, and that the damage is done to brand America. And you can see where this is not a good thing when I'm pulling my energy into that space. Very, very challenging.
It is very challenging. And I quite honestly, maybe I shouldn't be, but I was shocked when I saw I didn't see all of them. You may have seen more than me, but when I saw one of the Fox opinion hosts, Laura Ingraham, and what she did to try to minimize the testimony of these Capitol Police officers, she went on her show and instead, she doesn't know their politics. And I think one of them even said they're apolitical, right? I mean, they're not defending only Democrats or Republicans, right? They're there to protect the Capitol and everyone there. But it was probably not a wise idea for these Fox opinion hosts to attack these witnesses because of their political affiliation. So what do? They belittle them. Laura Ingraham gave them an award, and it was like a drama award, basically saying, "Oh, what a good actor you are," getting up there and crying in the witness chair or whatever. I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? So especially when there's footage of this guy, in the crowd and getting, hit with a stick. It's like, you did see the footage, right? You can have some empathy to put yourself in their place, right? If you were fighting for the nation, like you said, you're going to, if you're in that place and your job is to protect both the Democrats and the Republicans that are in that building, right? Yes.
Now, here's one thing that really kind of spurred this talk a little bit is that one of the officers, to try to have a rational moment with the crowd, says, "I voted for Biden. Does my vote not count?" Rationalizing and explaining to a person that feels angry doesn't work. It's like you sitting next to the Angel fans that has engaged the process of defeat the enemy at all costs. And you look at that Angels fan and saying, "See, you guys really do, stink, or whatever." And the guy's had too much to drink or has bought into the narrative that his self-worth or his identity is so invested in the Angels that he throws a beer in your face and then hits you, over the head with whatever hard instrument he has available. You're going like, oh my gosh. So this is where that line gets crossed, that the identity and the disconnect takes place. Does that make some sense?
It does. It is really, to me, it was shocking. And I just wondered, wow, Fox News is doing that. But then when we talk about the team loyalty, it makes sense, right?
Oh, yeah, it makes sense. We can empathize with it. We can actually say, oh, my gosh, this makes sense. This is the good reason why they don't want their viewers to go anywhere. They want their viewers to stay put. What are their viewers used to? Us ranting against the other side. What are we going to do with this very, very difficult situation? Instead, if they were a news person and had some form of integrity towards America or towards another human being,
or towards the institution of journalism,
then they would be this, but they are not those people. Those are not that show. Those shows might be as fictional as science fiction. It's allowed to be that way. It's allowed to create an alternative reality. They get to beam into an event in a situation, and then they get to beam out and say, "See, we were just visiting. It's okay, and no damage because we're allowed to do that. We're not held accountable."
Oh yeah, they're not under oath, are they? Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson, they're not under oath, right?
They're not under oath, and you can. It's the tying a person's message, and that's what the insurrection is about: tying a person's message to such the extent that it motivates another person to do violence or harm towards another person. Violence or harm to another person. All the people at the Trump rally before the march to the things, there were things that were said that crossed the line in volatility. Hey, listen, we are demonstrating all of them could have completely played the line they needed to play. All of the different people, they could have not said that next level of, we need to storm and take this thing back. We're going to walk down there and I'm going to be leading you there. He didn't lead anybody there. All his words said, "I will lead you there."
Or I'm going with you. He said things that led people to believe it. Yeah.
Right. I'm going with you. Well, then I better go. He's going to be there. He's going to be at the front. He's going to be at the front coming in, isn't he? He's going to be at the very front. No, he's not.
Well, you remember a lot of the people we've heard quoted within the Capitol saying, Trump sent us. Trump sent us, right?
Sent us here. That's the challenge.
So, I wondered when I saw Laura Ingraham give this sort of fake award for drama to these Capitol police officers, or one in particular, I was like, wow, how far is Fox News going to go? How far are these hosts going to go because of their loyalty to this one guy and to this party?
So it's a great question. How far would you go as a Red Sox fan? But see, notice that you have a line, you have a drop off. I am not going to hit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kill another fan from another team.
No, I'm not going to hurt anybody. I mean, it would take a lot in some ways, it would take an awful lot to move me off of my loyalty to my team, but there is a line, and I am not going to remain loyal at the expense of somebody else's, personal safety or health, and something like that. So certain, but you can understand how, when you think about the team loyalty, how this is. And you know what, Bill, there's one other example of this team loyalty that I think is very appropriate and really just shows you how people in America are struggling with this.
Right.
And it comes out of a report out of St. Louis, Missouri, which is Midwestern, very conservative part of the country, voted for Trump,
Sure.
And there's a report, and what this shows you is not only team loyalty has been largely responsible for why a lot of people in America have not gotten the COVID-19 vaccine, right?
Yes.
Because a report came out of St. Louis that people are getting vaccines in private because they don't want to come out and admit to their friends, their family, their team that they're getting the vaccine, despite all of the, talking points that are not supportive of the vaccine on their team identity. So,
right.
I mean, boy, if you're going to the point where you're so loyal to your team, you don't want to admit you've gotten the vaccine, but your need for personal safety and health is so strong.
That's
You're
right.
going to do it in a covert way, I guess. Well, I guess I'm all for you getting the vaccine, however you do it.
That's correct.
But wow. I mean, that's a wow moment for me.
And that's one of the challenge with a shame-based narrative, a language pattern that's inside a person's identity to say, I can't cross the greater group. So, for example, if I am saying to myself, okay, I do not like Tucker Carlson, I do not like Sean Hannity, I do not like Laura Ingraham, I, as a purchaser, as a choice, can go on to the list of their advertisers and say, see all these people? I'm writing them all a letter, letting them know that my loyalty to their company and their brand has been moved away from their brand. I am finding a new loyalty with a new company. I am leaving your brand forever, as well as my children. And I am letting them know because I have conviction in the money that you're spending, even though I can empathize with the 73 million people, that customers that you can get over there by advertising with that group. I want to let you know that you just lost loyalty of one of your customers. The loyalty has changed. I will not buy AT&T. I will not buy Honda. I will not buy. See, all of a sudden I'm down a list. I'm not buying them because you've just crossed the brand America identity because you're supporting a group that is emphasizing division. I'm not going there with my products or services. I'm not purchasing that. And this is where the healthier dialogue exists, is this good for America? Yes. The conversation about who has the best batting average, or where do I put the bridge in this state or this state, that's a collective infrastructure challenge. Shall I build a new bridge in Texas, or shall I build a new bridge in Iowa? That's an infrastructure. As the United States of America, we do them both because both bridges need to be fixed. We don't want either of our fellow citizens to have something that could hurt them, or that is something that is, it will not serve us as a greater nation if it wasn't fixed.
You know, infrastructure is a great example, Bill, because we are seeing that at the time we're recording this, moving through Congress in the most bipartisan fashion that we've seen anything move through Congress in quite some time, right, where 17 Republicans in the Senate have voted to advance a bipartisan infrastructure bill that's like $1.2 billion big. So there are things we as Americans all agree on that we need for the good of all of us. And it's heartening to see that, at least at this point, you know, moving forward. I think that's a very positive thing.
Very, very positive things. And these are things that, Tom, we can discuss moving forward. This whole idea of truth and the loyalty in a sports team, in business and politics. We got to be careful what hat we're wearing, but also realize the collective hat of capitalism that runs a certain part of our economy, and the collective hat of cooperation that looks like funding police and looks like funding firemen. It looks like funding infrastructure. Those are the dance between more of a social spend versus a capitalist or a growth spend. Very different. but we've got to get used to those two hats have got to find a way to fit on our head too.
They sure do, Bill. All right. Well, hey, I really appreciate this discussion. It's been very helpful for me. And I hope also for our listeners, I hope.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. If you need more information about how to be empathetic in a most difficult situation, these are things that, we work on. This is something that's a big part of my profession. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah. purchasingtruth.com. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next time.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.